video, I'm going to show you a few drills that you can practice to get better at throwing the body jab to your opponent, or the number 8 in the Peekaboo punch number system. The targeting for the body jab is going to be that solar plex. So if you find your opponent's, your own chest bone, right below your chest bone, there's a little soft spot. That's where your solar plex is. So you're going to be aiming that body jab to your opponent's solar plex. So starting off from your squared off stance, hands up, peekaboo stance. Remember, I'm not bladed up. I'm here, squared off. What I'm going to do is I'm going to step forward and crouch to the side. Step forward and crouch, and then I'm going to drive off that rear foot to generate power into my body jab. So I'm in my peekaboo stance, I'm going to drive off and step forward, drive that body jab into my opponent's solar plex. So when I'm on my side, I got my head crouched, I want to keep this hand high. And then when I throw the punch, I'm going to turn that thumb down, just like if I was holding a coffee mug, and I'm going to empty the coffee mug. So again, start from the squared off stance. I'm going to step in, drive that body jab in, get my head offline. I don't want to leave my head up when I throw the body jab, because then it's easier for my opponent to counterpunch me. Can he hit me when I'm crouched down? Yes, he can. If he has long arms, he can reach over and still hit me with that straight right. But just like any punch, you got to set it up to throw off your opponent's counter time or counter punching timing so you can land that body jab. Usually I'll go jab to the head and then throw that 8 to the body. So when practicing against the heavy bag, same thing. I'm going to start in that squared off stance. All right, remember peekaboo, you're in a squared stance. So from there, I'm just going to step in, drive off that rear foot, crouch to the side, turn that thumb down, and throw the number 8. Making sure I breathe out when I punch. And I can come right back home when I'm done. And then when I rise, when I bring my head back up and home, I can actually make sure I move my head. So it's going to look like this. I can slip 3 times. Okay, so that's just proper technique for the number 8. So what I advise you to do is get on the heavy bag and do repetitions, or put a timer on, put a clock on, set a 3-minute round, and just work proper technique, proper form for the number 8, which is the body jab. Like I said previously, when throwing the body jab, unless it's used as a counter punch, for instance, if my opponent jabs me and I slip and crouch and counter punch him at the same time with the number 8, that's a good way to throw the number 8 or the body jab as a counter punch. But a lot of times I like to use it offensive. And when I use it offensive, I want to throw something beforehand. Usually I throw the number 7, which is the jab to the nose. I throw the number 7 high and then drop down into that body jab, the number 8. So I'll throw the 7-8. So I'm in my stance, I step in, throw the 7, and then step in again and drive that 8 to the solar plex. Again, then return home. I'm going to step in, 7, 8. Now the 7 to the head doesn't have to land. It could be a feint. I can feint high and go low. So it's here. I can feint high, go low, get my head offline. Now for round 2, remember round 1, you're just going to work the 8. Just drop and work the body jab on the heavy bag. Round 2, you're going to jab high, jab low. The 7, 8. So I'm in front of the bag. I'm going to step in, 7, and then drop on that 8, and then bring my head home. There, I can move my head based on what my opponent does. If I hit the 8, my opponent shuffles out and moves away, I don't have to stop and move my head. I can just keep pressing forward. So again, 7, 8. Get my head offline, return home. Again. Now let's have a chance to see what this looks like. Once I get good at the 8, the body jab, and then I get good at throwing the jab to the head, jab to the body, the 7, 8. Next, logical progression is I'm going to go 7, 8, and then come up with that 2. For instance, a couple things you want to pay attention to when you're sparring your opponent. If you throw that 8 at your opponent and he pats it or drops his hands a little bit to defend that 8, you're gonna make note of that. So let's pretend I'm sparring. I hit with the 7, I'm moving my head, I hit the 7, 8. I notice my opponent will drop his hands a little bit, maybe crunch down, expose his face. And then my next line of attack is gonna be 7, 8, 2. I'm gonna rise out. And I'm gonna have maximum power on that number 2, which is that straight right. Reason why is because when I drop into that 8 to the body, I'm squatted down, doing a knee bend, and I'm gonna come out of that and really generate a lot of body and momentum into that number 2 because I'm coming out of that squatted position. So now, round 3, you're gonna go to the heavy bag and work the 7, 8, 2. Now, since you're ending with a head punch, you're gonna move your head. So I can do a double weave, or I can slip twice after I throw that straight right. So I'm in front of the bag, slip, slip. Again. Or I can do the double weave. Double weave. And then you can just do a whole round on working that specific combination. Another attack I could do off throwing the 8 to the body is, instead of coming up with that 2, that straight right to the head, I'm going to go down with the 8, and then I'm going to add a little slip where I come to the center line, and then I'm going to come up with that lead hook to the head, the number 1. So again, and I'm going to do it off the jab. I'm going to put everything together now. So I'm going to go 7, 8, bring my head, almost do like a semi-weave, and then come up with that 1 to the head. Then if that's my last punch, I'm going to do a double weave. So in front of the heavy bag, I'm going to go 7, 8, 1, move my head. Again. This works really well. Remember, you got to pay attention to how your opponent responds to your jab attack. You know, if I jab my opponent, not only am I getting in range or setting up my combinations, my jab is a feeler to where I can identify different traits or mistakes or defenses my opponent is using. For instance, if I go high-low and my opponent drops that lead arm and pats it, or drops that lead arm to cross block it, then I might come with the 2. So I'll go 7, 8, 2. All right, but what if my opponent's out here and I do that 7, 8 and my opponent drops that rear hand, either pats it or kind of drops the elbow down or goes like this, like an oh shit block where he crunch down but leaves the head open. That's when I go 7, 8, and then bring up that 1 to the head. So let's do a quick review. So you're just gonna practice the 8 where I step in, get that crouch, turn the thumb over, work the 8. Okay, that would be round 1. Round 2 is I'm gonna work the 7, 8. So I'm gonna be here, 7, 8. All right, then depending on what my opponent does, I might go 7, 8, 2. Move my head. Round 4, I'm going to do the 7, 8, 1. So I'm going to step in, jab of the head, jab of the body, step in again, throw that left hook to the head, the number 1. Now we're going to use the 8, which is a body jab, to disguise or set up my step to the side or spring to the side. So first we're going to go to the right hand side. So I'm going to stand in front of the bag. I'm just going to step in, throw that 8 to the body, get in that crouch position, boom, throw that 8. Now I'm going to drive off this lead foot and I'm going to spring to the side. Spring to the side of my opponent. So again, I'm going to drop down into the 8, whoop, here, and then spring to the side. Get to the side of my opponent. When I get to the side, I'm going to let my right hand shots go. So on this combination, I'm going to go 6 to the body, 2 to the head. So 6, 2, double hook. So again, I'm going to start with the 8, step in, throw the body jab, spring to the side, whoop, whoop, and then move my head after my last punch. So again, use the 8, whoop, spring, whoop, whoop, move my head. Again, move my head, after my last punch. Now we're going to use the 8 to spring to the left-hand side or the lead hand side. So in front of the heavy bag, I'm going to drop down into that 8 to the body. Boom. Okay, then I'm going to drive off this foot, and I'm going to spring to the left-hand side. Stand in that crouch position. Okay, so we do that again. I'm going to drop into the 8, spring. And then from here, I'm going to fire the 5 to the body and 1 to the head. Double hook, and then I'm going to move my head after my last punch. So again, then move my head. One more time. In front of the heavy bag. Move my head after my last punch. Work the number 8, the body jab, either as a counter or as an offensive attack. And you'll see the different opportunities it's going to open up with on your opponent.